Hello and welcome. My name is Hayley and this is Angel Fur Babies. So this is a new channel, you may have noticed. My regular channel is Divinity, but that was devoted more to twin flames, and I just don't think the people understood that I was now doing animal mediumship because my dog crossed over. It's where spirit has been guiding me, and it's kind of rough not to support me while I'm doing these videos, as I am very much grieving. It's 2 weeks to the day today. So of course I don't actually give a flying what about twin flames or my twin flame or anyone else's twin flames. All I care about is my baby, and she seems to have opened up a channel for me to talk to other loved ones that have crossed over as well, like my brother and other fur babies. Over the years I've had a lot of cats in particular, but a few dogs as well, and one horse. And so I felt the spirit of some of those come through, especially my first pet, Shelley. She was a tortoiseshell cat, and got her when I was 4 years old, and she died when I was 14. And the night that she passed away, she came and visited me in a dream. Got to remember, I was very psychic as a child. I always have been. She came and visited me in a dream. In the dream, we were sitting together under a tree, and she said that she loved me and thank you for looking after me so well, but I have to go now and I'll see you on the other side. And the next day I was the one that found her body, and it was still slightly warm, like she'd been missing for a few days. She'd gone away to die. So that was Shelley. She was very much a soul cat, very important to me in my journey, and she's very much still ethereally attached to me. So she's been coming through lately as well. I had a cat named Billy who passed away 3 years ago. He actually met Wolfie when I went to, actually before I got him, I was talking to a friend at the bar. This was back when I used to drink. And he said, "Do you want a cat? He keeps coming to my house. He's a stray. He's really lovely." And I said, "I would, but I've got a cat." Well, shortly after that, the cat that I had passed on, ran away and then passed on. And anyway, then I wanted another cat shortly after that. And I went to the pound, went to the shelter to go and get a cat. And I had in mind something completely different. I was going to, I wanted a pretty cat, because the cat that just passed away was this white fluffy cat that I called Spirit. Who, that's another story altogether. Spirit actually was able to see Spirit, and it drove him mad in the end. But anyway, he ran away, and I knew that he had passed on. And so I went to the shelter, and I was looking for another pretty cat like Spirit, but Billy jumped from across the room into my arms, wrapped his arms around my neck and hung on for dear life. And I said to the lady, "I guess he's picked me." And she said, "In the 20 years that I've worked here, I've never seen anything like that before." So I said, "Well, he's made his decision." So he came home with me, and unfortunately he passed away of feline AIDS 3 years ago. It was quite a horrible way for him to go, but so he's been coming in and out as well. After he passed away, actually with both Spirit and Billy, I would feel them after they passed jumping on the end of my bed. I would feel the weight of them on the mattress, feel them right by my feet where they used to always lie. Cats are pretty good at doing that kind of thing. So I felt them come through. Another cat spirit I've felt come through recently was my daughter's cat, who she used to call Little Girl, but I used to call her La Gigi. My daughter moved out and left the cat here, and I looked after her for a while until my daughter got her again. I used to call her La Gigi, and yeah, her spirit's been coming through strong lately as well. So it's not just Wolfie that's been coming through since she passed away. It seems to have opened like a portal, maybe something that I'd been blocking myself off to before. But because I actually want messages from Wolfie, I seem to be more open now, and I've actually ordered a couple of books about becoming a spirit medium for animals. I want to do this. This is where I want to go with it. And yeah, so I've talked about signs and messages that have come through from Wolfie since she passed. And, you know, that's continued. It hasn't stopped. The signs that I've had in the last few days, I got home from my walk one day. You know, I still go the same way that me and Wolfie used to go. I got home from my walk and one of her tennis balls was sitting on the floor right in front of her drink bowl. I haven't put away her drink or her food bowl yet, and I still make sure that the drink bowl's got water in it. But yeah, one of her tennis balls. And I believe it was under something, like, you know, yeah, there's toys all throughout the house. They're hidden everywhere. They're like under the couch and under the computer table and all that sort of thing. So she must have dug it out from somewhere. And funny thing is, she hasn't, you know, been interested in balls for a couple of years. That was a younger Wolfie thing. Me and Geordie actually taught her to not only catch the ball but to throw it back. But she wouldn't fetch the ball. She refused to actually go and get the ball and bring it back to us. That was, no, you're not having it, it's mine. So she may be telling me that she's resorted back to a younger version of her, you know, probably 1 or 2 years old, when she used to play with balls a lot. Because, yeah, there wasn't just one ball over the last few days. There was another one that I went to sit on the couch in the morning and I put my foot down on this rubber ball, and it had fluff all over it like it had been dug out from under the couch. So yeah, it's like she'd brought it out from under the couch and put it on the floor where she knew I would step on it. And I found 2 more of her balls somewhere else where I used to keep her her shedding fur. I used to keep some of it, and I used to keep it in a bucket. I've moved it since then. I've put it near all her pictures and her ashes now, but there was 2 tennis balls there the other day, and it's really cool. It's like she's leaving me these little signs everywhere that she's still with me. I haven't had a bark in my dreams since the last time I told you of her barking on the astral, but to be fair, I'm still not sleeping properly. Yeah. So anyway, I've got this singing bowl here because when Wolfie was sick over the last, you know, the first surgery and the second surgery, I would do the singing bowl for her and she really liked it. With the first surgery, I remember going on YouTube and playing Tibetan singing bowl music for her all night, and she really liked it. So I use the Tibetan singing bowl to call her spirit in now, so I'll be doing that now. I call upon the spirit of Wolfie to join me in this reading. So, yeah, I just want to get any general messages from Wolfie about, other people who've just recently lost their pets and want to connect with their animal that's crossed over. It can be really hard at the time of grieving because of the frequency difference. So dogs already exist or dogs and cats, pets, animals already exist on a much higher frequency than humans. Humans tend to be more in ego, whereas animals are already existing in unconditional love. So they already have, by default, a much higher frequency. But of course, when you cross over into the light and become one with divine, which we all are, but, remember who you are and be washed in that beautiful light of unconditional love when you cross over, your frequency is extremely high. And so to communicate with spirit, whether it be animals or people, you have to raise your vibration quite high, which, when you're grieving, of course, it lowers your frequency. So, when you're grieving the loss of an animal or a person, you will go through guilt. Guilt is a major thing when you go through grieving when you first lose a pet. And it doesn't matter how good of a pet owner you were. It doesn't matter how much they knew that you loved them. You will still experience some kind of guilt. Could I have done more? Could I have played more with them? Could I have, bought them better food? Was it my fault? Did they get sick because of something I did or something I didn't do? Did I do enough? Did I do the right thing? Should I have done surgery? Should I have not done the surgery? Should I have gone to someone else? Should I have spent more money? All these questions come up. And of course they did for me. And yeah, it can be quite debilitating, and it does bring your frequency down a lot. And so if you want to communicate with your pet on the other side, you have to find a way to raise that vibration. And, I'm not the best meditator. I never have been. But because I've been psychic my whole life, I sort of do exist on that dreamy alpha wave zone anyway. I'm a Cancerian, so, my head's sort of up in the clouds anyway. But, if you feel the need to meditate, that could be something that you could do. Just getting yourself really calm, not being in fear. Fear is the biggest block. Don't be afraid of your pet if you do see a sign. That they're not ghosts. There's a difference between ghosts and spirit. Spirit are those who crossed over into the light, and they're beings of unconditional love. And you may fear that I may call through a malevolent evil spirit if I open my channel. No, if you are specifically with intention wanting to speak to your animal or animals or people that you knew, then they are who are going to come through. And you can ask your spirit guide for protection. They will help you. But you've got to be open as well. Open to listening, open to receiving. Not just tentatively saying, I would like to hear from my pet, and then shutting yourself off because you're scared. If you did find a ball on the floor, you might freak out. Or if you did see their apparition, you might freak out. Or, just be open to it. Don't be afraid. They're your pet or they're your loved one. Just be completely open to that. So I want to look, I don't know what's going to come through. This is quite new for me. So, bear with me. I'm using the Grand Tableau here. As you know, I've been doing tarot for 20 years. And as I said, I was mostly doing twin flames and soulmates. Well, Wolfie is my soulmate, so this is the same thing. They're all soul connections. And, it's all part of our path, all part of our journey. It's all the same thing, really. So we have the book. And, the book represents knowledge, learning. And, this is what this is. This is a new phase. You have to get used to this. She doesn't have her beautiful, gorgeous body anymore. And yes, I miss her body. She was so pretty. But I have to learn to adapt. I have to learn to find new ways. And, that could be watching lots of videos, reading books. Like I say, I've ordered some books so that I can get some more information. Learn from others. Learning from others is always a good starting point. And just being open, like not saying, oh, well, I don't know how to do it. I'm not a psychic medium, so I can't do this. That instantly shuts it down. You've got to be open to it, open to the possibilities. Have an open mind like a child. A child doesn't go, oh, I can't be a fairy ballerina or whatever. They put the costume on and they are a fairy ballerina, and that's what you've got to be. That's the kind of mindset you've got to be in for this. You've got to be willing and open and, we have the Rider here. So the Rider is someone who brings forth messages. But I was particularly drawn in this picture to the shadow. I've been thinking a lot about when I go for my walks now. I used to love seeing Wolfie's shadow on the concrete. We used to go down this certain road, and if the sun was in a certain position in the sky, her shadow looked so cool, and I miss it so much, and I wish I'd got a photo of it, but I didn't, because I never used to take my phone with me when we went for walks, because, I used to just enjoy the moment. But I used to love looking at her shadow, and, I feel like it's sort of telling me that, the physical body is not here anymore, but the shadow is. That shadow is the essence. The soul is still here. It doesn't go anywhere. Wolfie's body was really bad. It was riddled with cancer. And, aside from that, she had the normal Malamute and Husky problem of having the allergies, particularly in her ears. And she would never let me clean them. And so, they would get really bad. I always used to say to her, you've got bad ears, darling, you've got bad ears. But she also had a bad belly. She had the cancers. So her body was no good, and it's gone now. Even though she was gorgeous, she was beautiful. But I feel like she's showing us that, we don't need the body to continue the relationship. The shadow is still here. The spirit remains, the essence of her. And, I mentioned in one of my other readings the other day that I got my son a new cat, Sasha, in the first week that Wolfie passed, just to fill some of that loneliness. Anyway, she seems to be very sensitive to spirit, as all cats are. Like I mentioned briefly before about my cat Spirit, he actually went mad because he used to be able to see spirit. He was very highly strung. I do wonder now if he was seeing my wolf spirit, which, you know, could have been quite disturbing for a cat. But anyway, Sasha, the new cat, whenever I feel Wolfie's presence, and I will feel it because I am psychic, she will sit there and she'll be, you know, her little head will be looking up and, you know, looking here and there, and it's like you can imagine her watching this orb, like she's just watching it gently float over, and it's always like hanging around me. So I feel that she's particularly sensitive to spirit. I was holding her the other day and I was sort of trying to communicate with Wolfie, and well, Wolfie must have come through because the cat absolutely freaked out and jumped out of my arms. And so, yeah, yeah, that is another sign. Don't discount it if you see your other pets in the house looking at something or, you know, acting a bit weird or freaking out, because they can see spirit much more easily than we can. And we have the birds here, and we can hear the birds outside, the crows. I used to call them crow fam. So when I think of birds, I feel like they are, you know, messengers from spirit, because they're, you know, we picture them as being close to the other side because they fly up in the sky. But it's just like a metaphor for like messengers from spirit. And, you know, that's what Wolfie's trying to say here, I believe, is that, you know, it is possible to receive messages from spirit. You've just got to believe. So I will pull a couple of animal spirit oracle cards here as well. Because I find this fascinating. I find this really fascinating. I used to always be scared of that part of being psychic. So when I was a child, I had a lot of premonitions and I was able to see ghosts. So there is a difference between ghosts and spirit. Ghosts are the ones that have not left this earthly realm. They had refused to move on, refused to go to the light, and they are usually bitter and malevolent. The ghosts that I saw when I was a kid were always mean and spiteful. I remember, oh God, I must have been about 7 or 8 years old, and my brother had gone on a sleepover at his friend's house, which was quite rare for him to do, and I had been arguing with my sister that day, who I shared a bedroom with, and so I decided to sleep in my brother's bedroom, but I didn't sleep on his bed because, ew, boy cooties. So I slept on the floor, and I could hear, because I was extremely psychic, very, very psychic as a child, I could hear these ghosts, and our house, the house I grew up in, had a lot of ghosts. And my mother would always say, "Oh, it's just your imagination, darling." And it used to really piss me off because, no, it's not, Mum. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there, you know. So they used to say, I remember on this particular night when I was sleeping in my brother's room, and they were talking through the floorboards because I was lying on the floor, and they said they were laughing. They were being really mean and laughing and saying, "Your brother's going to die. Your brother's going to die young. He's going to die when he's in his 20s, and it's really going to hurt you." And they were snickering and laughing. This is what I mean by ghosts are mean. My brother actually did die when he was 27. And I actually had told my brother, that he was going to die young, and he said, "Oh, I didn't know you were a psychic, but you must be, because I've been to several psychics who all told me that same thing." So yeah, it was almost like proof to him that I was a psychic, because he'd paid for so many psychics that had all told him the same thing. But it doesn't help though, does it? I talked about guilt before, how we often have guilt after someone dies. It may allay your guilt a little bit to know that as someone who's been a lifelong psychic, I staunchly stand by the fact that, yes, some things can be changed on your path. With knowledge from tarot readers and psychics and mediums and whatever, some things can be changed, but some things absolutely cannot. And one of those things that absolutely cannot be changed is your time of death. Your pet's time of death. Your loved one's time of death. How they die, what they die of, where they die, who is with them when they die, who it affects. This is something you cannot change because it's part of our life contract, not just theirs but ours, because their death affects us and it changes our life and it's part of our path, and therefore we cannot change it. Other things that we cannot change is soul contracts. So soulmates, twin flames, soul animals, pivotal people that come in our lives and, are there to help us grow. We cannot change that. We cannot change why or how or when. So yeah, get that out of your head about blaming yourself or blaming anyone else. I've talked to a lot of people who've lost pets recently because, it's nice to connect with others who have been through similar things, and, you hear some pretty horrible stories. Like someone told me they took their beloved dog to the vet just to get some dental work, and that dog never came out of anaesthetic. So, and I did have a cat that died in anaesthetic, and it's easy to blame the vet. It's easy to say the vet did the wrong thing. I even went down that road because, Wolfie had a lot of complications after her surgery because she had a lot of fluid leakage and the surgeon never put drains in her. And I, often questioned if he'd have put drains in, would she have healed? And, it's easy to go down that road of blaming the vet, blaming yourself, blaming someone who opened the door and let your pet out onto the road and they got killed. But it doesn't help anything because that pet's death, the time of death, the day of death, who was there at the time, how they died, how they suffered, that was all written. That was all written before they got here. Yes, pets even write into their life's plan the ones that are going to get abused, the ones that are going to be in puppy farms, the ones that, I know you don't want to hear that. People don't want to hear that. Why would a pet do that? Why would a pet write that into their life? Because it's about soul growth. Souls don't see things the way we see it through human eyes. Everything is a chance for growth. Why does an animal choose to be a meat animal in this lifetime? Because it's an experience, because it's an opportunity for soul growth. Does that mean that we should all become vegans and never eat meat again? No, animals don't want us to do that. My dog loved meat. My cat loves meat. They don't want us to do that. They understand that meat animals are meat animals, and, one day you may come back as a meat animal, and that's fine. You may choose to do so. So we have the white raven spirit. Trust in the magic, exactly. Trust the signs. It's easy to say, there's 100 reasons why that tennis ball was on the floor next to Wolfie's water bowl. Or, I'm not sleeping well, so that bark I heard in the middle of the night was not hers. Or, whatever it is. I'm not coping, and so I just imagined that. It's easy to go down that road, but you, like I said, you have to be open to it. You have to be willing to, be open-minded and accept it. Otherwise, you won't get what you want. You won't get these messages. Hawk spirit, let spirit be your guide. And know that your loved one is watching you like a hawk. They're watching you from the other side. And, they have a connection to you. They're not gone. You may think, oh, they're over the rainbow bridge, or, my loved one's in heaven and they're having a great time. They're living it up. Why would they want to come and see me? Or, oh, they've missed out on all these things that are happening in my life. I wish they could see it. But they do see it. They're still with you. They're watching you like a hawk. And no, you're not being annoying by asking them to come here. They want to hear from you. Coyote spirit, trust in divine detours. So when I think of a coyote, I think of their laugh. And, you may hear your pet come through in a happy, playful way. Like I said, Wolfie hadn't played with tennis balls for a couple of years. She did when she was a puppy. And it's like she's coming through in that more playful spirit now. So, yeah. Just going to finish up with a few more cards here. We have the Queen of Swords in the reverse position. You create your own boundaries. You create your own barriers, and these are, society, religion, what our mum and dad said. What would others think if I was talking to my dead pet? Is this the right thing to do? Is it evil? Do animals have souls? These are your own barriers, and you're going to have to find a way to get over that. You're going to have to find a way to drop those barriers if you truly want to communicate with your loved one. And we have the Ace of Cups. Being in that unconditional love, being in that energy of unconditional love, remembering the good times, remembering the love that you had for each other, will create that connection. And my gosh, we're getting a lot of outside noises today. Taxi drivers, kids screaming, and now we've got whippersnippers or weed whackers or whatever's going on out there. So I'll get one more card out. And we've got the Nine of Cups in the reverse position. It's not over. Your connection with your loved one is not over. That is the message for today, and I will leave it here because we're getting too much outside disturbance. So take care, and I'll see you next time. Bye.